Great news. There's a quick way you can save money. Switch to Geico. Geico could help you get great coverage at a great price. And it only takes 15 minutes to see if you could save 15% or more on car insurance. Go to geico.com today and see how much you could save.
This is the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
I'm Stephen A.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the latest edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you as I love to do every weekday over the airwaves of ESPN Radio, 250-plus markets across the United States of America, plus ESPN Radio on Sirius XM Channel 80, not to mention now simulcast live on ESPN News every weekday from 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 a.m. to noon Pacific Standard Time. Feel free to join me anytime. Also can catch me on Facebook.com, Stephen A. Smith, Twitter.com/Stephen A. Smith, Instagram.com/Stephen A. Smith. The Stephen A. Smith Show is being brought to you by Discover Card. We treat you like you'd treat you, which is why we think annual fees are just ridiculous. We bet you do too. To see all the ways Discover is looking out for you, go to Discover.com or give us a call at 1-800-DISCOVER. Time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks. No contracts. Look, a couple of things we need to get into. We need to get this out of the way right now. I want to make sure that everybody understands my position. To reiterate and regurgitate some of the things that I said yesterday about Odell Beckham Jr.'s new deal with the New York Giants, $95 million, $65 million guaranteed, making him the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. Odell Beckham Jr. deserves his money, every penny. He's box office. He's the real deal. He's legitimately and bona fide as an individual you walk through the turnstiles to watch and see play. Ladies and gentlemen, I've said this all the time. I'll say this in my industry. I've said this in any industry, and I'll stand by that right now. All talent is not the same. People are different. That's the beauty of capitalism. People are different. There are those who are subpar. There are those who are average. There are those who are great. There are those who are phenomenal. And then there are those who are box office. And sometimes you have people who are relatively box office and they're good but not great. But they're box office for a different reason. Any way you slice it, people look for different reasons to be monetized. Somehow, some way, when you can attach yourself to the qualification as a revenue generator, you've positioned yourself to get paid. Odell Beckham Jr. has happened to have done that with his play as well as some of his eccentric tendencies. So the reality is clear. This brother's box office, he deserves his money. I'm in complete support of it, period. Having said all of that, I'll say to you what I said yesterday. He's not the best wide receiver in football. That happens to be Antonio Brown for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't care what anybody says. You have one playoff appearance on your resume where you were targeted 11 times. You caught 4 passes for 28 yards at Lambeau Field in Green Bay in a playoff game that you lost. And the week of the playoff game, albeit an off day and obviously in no violation whatsoever of team rules, you were still chilling on a boat with a bunch of fellas in South Beach. The week of a game, the Monday before that game. You flew back, you worked hard, you handled your business, but you wasn't ready to go because you dropped a few passes in that playoff game against Green Bay. That's the reality. These are the facts. And when we look at Antonio Brown and the kind of resume that this man has on his docket, what is there to talk about here? Y'all want to act like production doesn't matter. I got news for you. It does matter. It provides proof. It's evidence as to what your value is. Antonio Brown, last season, 101 receptions, 1,533 yards. Over the last 5 seasons, 110, 129, 136, 106, and 101 receptions. The yardage, 1,499, 1,698, 1,834, 1,284, 1,533. That's Antonio Brown. That's Antonio Brown. Did I get to the playoffs? Career-wise, over 6 seasons, 51 receptions, 837 yards. That's Antonio Brown. So let's stop the nonsense here. We got to start calling it like we see it. I've got to do my top 5 receivers. I'm telling you right now. It's Antonio Brown. It's Julio Jones. It's Odell Beckham Jr. It's DeAndre Hopkins. And then the 5th guy that you want to throw in the mix, it could be Devontae Adams. It could be Mike Evans. It could be a few cats out there. It could be Keenan Allen. It could be a few brothers out there. Fine, throw them all in there. I'm cool with it. I'm cool with it. You want to tell me that Devontae Adams should be thrown on the list? Because guess what? Aaron Rodgers no longer has Jordy Nelson on the squad, and he's going to throw that ball to Devontae Adams? Okay. I'll believe it when I see it. You want to tell me that Deshaun Watson is going to stay healthy and be that stud and DeAndre Hopkins' stock is going to elevate? I believe it. Let's see it happen. You want to tell me Mike Evans is going to be that stud? I ain't questioning Mike Evans, but a wide receiver, last time I checked, can't throw the ball to himself. He needs a quarterback to do that. And his guy is going to be suspended for at least the first 3 games. For stuff that I don't feel like bringing up right now. We all know what Jameis Winston's checkered past includes. So all of that going on, these are impediments. These are impediments. You don't get around that. It's just the reality of the situation. It's inescapable. And since that's the reality, let's deal with what's real. Odell Beckham Jr. deserves his money. But when you're the highest paid receiver in the game and the belief is that you're the best in the game, I need more of a resume. So I hope and I believe that Odell Beckham Jr. will do this. I believe he will go out there hell-bent on proving that he's worth every penny that he's just gotten. And I think he's going to show up and show out. And I applaud the New York Giants for stepping up and taking care of his business. This brother's a box office attraction in the media capital of the world. And the money they have available to them, everybody don't have the same liquidity that the Giants have. You took care of this man. Now let's see the Raiders take care of Khalil Mack like they should. Now let's see the Los Angeles Rams take care of Aaron Donald like they should. Now let's see the Pittsburgh Steelers take care of Le'Veon Bell, which they won't do, but they should do. I got to be protective of my voice. I still got that voice issue from yesterday. But I'm just saying, if we're going to be real about it, can we please be real about it? If we're going to say we're going to be real about it, let's actually do it. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. And oh, by the way, a couple of statistics. Over the last 3 seasons, Odell Beckham Jr. played in 35 games, 222 receptions over those 35 games, averaging 89 yards, had 26 touchdowns. More touchdowns than anybody, but, he had 26 touchdowns. I apologize. Julio Jones, same period of time, 11 more games, 9 less touchdowns, but had 307 receptions to Odell Beckham Jr.'s 222. DeAndre Hopkins, over the same 3 seasons, 12 more games than Odell Beckham Jr., 285 receptions, averaging 82 reception yards per game. 28 touchdowns, 2 more than Odell Beckham Jr. Antonio Brown, 10 more games than Odell Beckham Jr. Over those 10 games, 121 more receptions at 343. Average yards receptions, Odell Beckham Jr. at 89, Antonio Brown at 103, and touchdowns at 31. Anywhere you slice it, any category you want to pick up, Antonio Brown's the man. That's all I'm trying to say. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. That's one item I wanted to get into. What's the other item? Jerry Jones, owner for the Dallas Cowboys, making news again. After his Dallas Cowboys committed 8 turnovers Sunday against the Arizona Cardinals in a snooze fest, Jerry Jones spoke to Tim Cowlishaw of the Dallas Morning News. Quote, "I made the presentation. You can see how I did." End quote. Jones actually believes that a longer regular season and a shorter training camp preseason will result in fewer, not more concussions. He says, quote, "I can make the case that we have an uptick in concussions in the preseason," Jones said. "If you look at it, I would contend there would be less exposure. There also would be more money, a lot more money. It will provide more than $1 billion to the players," Jones said. "It's certainly worth considering. It would direct more value for what the players expend to the players." Ladies and gentlemen, grab a hold of your seatbelt. I 1,000% agree with Jerry Jones. The preseason should be lessened. the regular season should be extended. And as far as I'm concerned, and it's a simple reason. When you're out there as a football player, it's costing you anyway. Practice on that turf, cutting, jabbing, tackling, etc. You're putting yourself through the physical exertion anyway. You're doing it anyway. So if that's what you're going to do, why don't you do it when the games count? And if there's more money, because the regular season games are obviously worth more than preseason games, and you're jeopardizing your health, your well-being, and your career during preseason and practice, why not minimize practice? Why not minimize preseason games? And if it dilutes the product to some degree, ladies and gentlemen, that's only the first few weeks of the season. That's only the first few weeks of the season. So what? You got to look at guys look a little bit sloppy. So what? You got to look at guys not look, like their A games are there with them. So what? The games should count more often. 18-game regular season. Now you got people that I know, they don't believe that. They believe do away with the preseason, keep the 16 games, have 2 bye weeks in the season, and probably extend a playoff team in each conference to 8 games as opposed to 6. No, I'm opposed to that. I'm saying, make the regular season 18 games. Make the regular season count that much more. But in the same breath, you're not really jeopardizing anyone from an extra perspective because, again, ladies and gentlemen, they're jeopardizing themselves anyway when they practice. This is football. It's almost like boxing. You ain't shadow boxing. If somebody is punching you upside the head just because it ain't in front of a live audience on pay-per-view doesn't mean you ain't getting knocked upside your head. So if you got to go through and endure this stuff anyway, you might as well make it count more, have more money thrown into the coffers of all of that, and call it a day. That's what you might as well do. That's what I would do. I wouldn't hesitate. This is a no-brainer. Jerry Jones is 1,000% correct on this issue. Plain and simple. The preseason should be completely eradicated as far as I'm concerned, but if you want to keep it 2 weeks, fine. But outside of that, let's get down to these games, baby. 18 games. 18 games. I completely and wholeheartedly agree with Jerry Jones. Y'all got me agreeing with Jerry Jones for crying out loud. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. I completely agree with this man. When he's right, he's right. On a different subject that's far more sensitive. I wanted to transition before we go to break to something that's on my mind. Because yesterday on my television show, First Take on ESPN, we discussed the topic of Tiger Woods talking about respecting the office of the presidency. And obviously, because there's a lot of vitriol out there towards our present commander-in-chief, there are people that were appalled by what Tiger Woods had to say. I was not one of those people. Although I will openly confess that although the black community's support of Tiger Woods as a golfer is evident because we don't root against him, there is a collective level of disgust due to his unwillingness to recognize his quote-unquote blackness from years ago when he called himself Kablasian or whatever. I think that's what it was. And people had a problem with that. So when you hear him speak on social issues, when you hear him speak on anything other than golf, you kind of have a raised eyebrow towards anything that comes out of Tiger Woods' mouth. That's not to excoriate him as a person. It's to highlight how insulting his depiction of himself was in our eyes. Because if you're black and you're in America, the mentality is that, you black no matter what. When you got arrested last year, they put on on that arrest record, you were black. They didn't care about your ancestry. this is how you were classified. And as a result, in most instances, black folks will make the argument, look at how you're treated compared to others. Having said all of that again, I will tell you that Tiger Woods, I agreed with him. You can have an issue with an individual while still respecting the office that they hold. You might feel whatever way you want to feel, but if the president of the United States walked into this studio right now, by virtue of him being the commander in chief, I would need to accord him a level of respect that should be accorded to the commander in chief. Period. I'm not apologizing for it to anybody. I'm not explaining to it to anybody. It is absolutely irresponsible and unprofessional to think otherwise. Now, I can attack what he may do, what he has done, or what he may do, but that's entirely different than attacking him, A, and B, you can do so without discrediting and minimizing the office of the presidency of the United States. I happen to believe that. Plain and simple. Now, having said that, I also take issue with this notion that's perpetuated out there. I despise when people are so quick to say ESPN, ESPN, ESPN. Let me say something to all the ESPN competitors out there. Not even competitors, just the critics. You don't work for a company where your views differ from some other people? I can assure you, to all of you out there, the notion that ESPN is some liberal commodity, some paragon of virtue espousing liberalism to the high hills, you couldn't be more mistaken. There are plenty of people who have different points of views. You are listening to one of them. I am liberal about some things. I am conservative about others. And some other things I'm very indifferent to, which would be appalling to both liberals and conservatives. So it's important to point that out. Don't paint everybody with a broad brush. ESPN is far from perfect. It's a phenomenal place to work. And there's a lot of people here that have different points of views, and the speech, the ideology, the beliefs of one doesn't speak for everyone. Point number 2. Point number 3, Jim Brown has made news today because the NFL legend declared Tuesday that the black community, quote, has a responsibility, end quote, to fix its own problems rather than placing the blame on President Trump. In an appearance on Fox and Friends, the former Browns running back called Mr. Trump an exceptional president who genuinely cares about the country, but that he isn't responsible for the black community's troubles. Quote, we should look at ourselves first before we look at the president, Jim Brown, 82 years of age, has said. The black community has a responsibility regardless of what the president does. And if you have a homicide rate within your black community, then it's not the president that's created a homicide rate. It's the black community itself that needs to address it. So I don't want to just put everything on him. And I'm sorry to say that the black community is not doing what we should do, and that includes myself. We have to be able to, as citizens, bring something that the president can join forces with and triple the effectiveness of it, end quote. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to get into the quote about the president being exceptional. The prism of history will judge our president from a politics perspective. There are things that I've seen that I don't like. There are other things that I've seen that I said, that could be interesting. I might like that. His behavior, how I feel about his behavior as a statesman, I think leaves a lot to be desired. That's all I have to say about that. What I have to say about Jim Brown, especially to every black person in America, be careful about how you respond to what this man had to say. Jim Brown is an iconic figure. Whether you agree or disagree with him, he has earned the right to say what he said. He is a man that stood and fought during the civil rights era. So when he speaks about black issues, he's qualified. He is a man that has watched and participated with the progression and the advancement that has taken place in various communities throughout this nation. He is knowledgeable about who the participants were. So when he says there were white folks who participated and helped push forward causes that were beneficial to black America, he has an idea what he's talking about. And when he says that the black community has to look within, where have you heard that before? That is not to absolve anyone from their role in stigmatizing, marginalizing, and minimizing African Americans and minorities in this country. But I'll be damned if the black community gets away with being blameless, because we're not. I'm not going to sit there and look at a bunch of other folks when black on black crime is permeating our society. And in fairness to my community, let me be clear. People usually kill where they are. Hispanics kill Hispanics. Whites kill whites. Blacks kill blacks. So it's not something that is discriminatory towards just black folks. This crime's going on all over the place. But the reality is that when you only make up 13% of the population and killing off one another enables you or regresses you to an endangered species, for crying out loud, there's an elevated level of urgency that gets attached to it with you than it does with other groups of people. So when Jim Brown and others speak on this issue, it's very poignant. Now, I'm not going to sit up here and act and sound like I'm some expert on this. Talk to Joe Madison on SiriusXM Urban View, 6 to 10 a.m. Channel 126. Talk to my girl Karen Hunter and others. But also listen to a Mark Levin speak about it as well, who I listen to as well sometimes. Listen to a Sean Hannity. Get a liberal voice. Get a conservative voice. Get something in between. Get all of that going on. I'm not absolving or ostracizing anybody from this. I'm telling you to go to people who might have more knowledge about this. But you better make sure that you include Jim Brown in that. I don't agree with some of the decisions that Jim Brown has made. I don't agree with some of the rhetoric, some of it, that he has spewed. But I will tell you this. He's been more right than he's been wrong. A. And B, my God, as a sports icon, the one thing you cannot question was his willingness to be a warrior on behalf of our community when it has counted. And if this man stands up and says, we have to look within ourselves and not just look to blame the president, I got to be honest with you. That's a valid point on his part. Regardless of how divisive I believe this president has come across on too many occasions, or how wrong I may think he is on a few issues, and a bit immoral at times, in terms of his language, his speech, his presentation. That doesn't mean that Jim Brown is completely wrong with what he had to say. That's just the truth, ladies and gentlemen. It's just the truth. 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. Your calls and more coming up next. The Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, plus ESPN Radio simulcast on ESPN News as well. That was Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. By the way, do you have frequent heartburn? Like the kind where you have an acid stashed away everywhere in case it pops up? You know what I mean. You keep some in your bag or your desk or your car or your nightstand. You have those chalky tablets ready for whenever and wherever heartburn strikes. Well, listen up. There's an easier way to deal with your heartburn. That's Prilosec OTC. That's how. Just one pill a day will last a full 24 hours with zero heartburn. Kick your antacid habit. It's possible with Prilosec OTC. Use as directed for 14 days to treat frequent heartburn, not for immediate relief. You are listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio.
Ricky always wanted to play baseball in the majors. He was playing catch before he could walk, practically lived in the batting cages. He was behind home plate more than he was home. And one day, after all that hard work, he found himself walking into a Major League Baseball stadium. After buying a ticket at the front gate, a nosebleed seat obscured by a pole, but he was in there. No, Ricky never did play in the big leagues, but he did switch his car insurance to Geico, proud partner of Major League Baseball, which saved him a lot. So, all in all, things were good.
You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Commercial insurance through Progressive protects your business and your dream. Choose from over 30 coverage options at progressivecommercial.com. Adnan Virk and Michael Eaves hanging out on the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80, and ESPN News. And always a pleasure to have Field Yates here with us. How we doing, man?
Good to be here hanging out with you guys. Great. It's football, like we always say, like starting in like June, like, hey, football's getting close. Yeah. Now football is like truly actually
now you can like
close.
Literally feel it in the atmosphere.
Yep.
Yes. Now
it smells a little different. Yeah. It's a good thing. One week from tomorrow.
After the marathon, you needed a little bit of time off. So I'm glad you got to the Cape, Little Vale, Colorado.
Yeah, listen, it was a good summer. I can't complain.
I've never gotten invited to the Cape by Field Yates. Have you?
I've never had a formal invite. I feel like if I just told Phil I'm coming, he'd be fine with that. But he's the unofficial ambassador.
But I feel like you have to get the invite before you even show up. Like, you can't just like roll in like, oh, are you on Field's list? Like, I don't think you can get on the Cape without Field's list.
I think there's a potential trip this weekend, Michael. I don't know if you got duties. You guys have like, two of the busiest guys around here on Bristol.
Actually, do you have something Sunday that you're both invited to? You just haven't received the invitation yet? Are you saying it's too late to send it to you?
No.
Okay. We'll take care of that.
Better late
like
than
2
never.
seconds.
Okay, good enough.
I'm always up for a surprise.
Noted.
Field, if you couldn't tell, along with being a Cape Cod expert and a guest planner, is an NFL insider for ESPN. He's also the co-host of the Fantasy Focus Football podcast. You know my brother loves it more than anything. He's in the studio giving us a Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. Who's going to start for the Eagles? All right, by Super Bowl champions here. We got Wentz. Is he ready to go or what?
My guess, as of right now, and we're 8 days away, is that Carson Wentz will sit the first week of the regular season, which means that Nick Foles will start week 1, despite the uneven preseason, I think would be a fair way to put it. But again, every year, think about by like mid-September, we're thinking back on those things that we latched onto during August. We're like, man, can you believe how good or how bad this player looked during the preseason? Every year we find that there are elements of fool's gold during the preseason. I know Nick Foles has struggled, but I would not be concerned if I'm the Eagles going into week 1. The reality is when you're that good of a roster and when you have that much infrastructure in place, 1 to 53 on your roster, you can afford to have a week or two without your starting quarterback. Is it ideal? Of course not. No, he's going to be a potential NFL MVP at one point in his career. But unlike other teams that will be scrambling and perhaps basically conceding a defeat in week 1 with their starting quarterback, the Eagles are in a pretty good spot.
I've had 4 knee surgeries in my life. 1 in high school, 1 in college, and 2 as an adult. And I'm not to compare my injury to Carson Wentz because his specific injury was different, but we both tore ACLs. The thing about an athlete, especially a young athlete, you want to come back as soon as possible for a couple of reasons. 1, you miss the competition. Yep. Number 2, you want to be a guy that heals quickly. There's this mental aspect like nothing can hold me down. I'll be out for a little bit. I come back strong. But hindsight is always 20/20. And when I was in high school, I came back way too early because I wanted to. If you look at Carson Wentz's situation, especially the fact that the Eagles just won the Super Bowl, the backup was the MVP of that Super Bowl. There are way more reasons for him not to play week 1 or even week 2, quite honestly, than it is for him to play. So if you're the Eagles, why wouldn't you be cautious and keep him out until you know 100% for a fact he's ready to go?
You just made the exact point that the Eagles are probably living by right now is, listen, we are concerned about every game during the course of the season. That's how the NFL works. It is a what have you done for me lately business. At the same time, we are less concerned about the first 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks of this season than we are the potential to have Carson Wentz as our starting quarterback for 10, 12, 15 years, because that's a track that even though we've only played less than 2 full seasons in the NFL, he is on. So it certainly feels like the Eagles, even when there was that cast of doubt about Nick Foles being ready for week 1 when he strained his shoulder, right, I don't think the Eagles flinched at all in terms of their Carson Wentz timeline. It was, he will be ready when he is ready. It is completely and entirely independent from Nick Foles' own injury.
And I'm with you on dismissing the preseason. I watched every snap of that 5-0 loss to the Browns. Aikman and Buck are saying the Eagles' offensive line might be the best in football. They get manhandled by the Browns' defense, which looked like the '85 Bears. I'm like, all of this is irrelevant. Who cares? Wait till the games start. Surprise a friend or loved one today with a bouquet from 1-800-Flowers.com. When you order a dozen multicolored roses for only $29.99, you'll get another dozen absolutely free. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN. Field Yates is our man right now, at Field Yates. You follow him on Twitter. He's always the best for breaking down everything that you need to know. Here's my issue with the Odell Beckham contract.
Okay.
I think they had to do it, and I understand that. But you get a quarterback who's 37 years old, 15th season in the NFL, he's been in decline. He leads the league in interceptions since his second Super Bowl. That's great that Odell is a spectacular wide receiver, but your quarterback is in serious decline. So, G-Man, you can settle down on the parade because you've got a rookie running back and you got a wide receiver who, and also feel, I saw the numbers, this is crazy. You know this. The more touches he gets, the less losses they have. There's an inverse relationship. You think feed him the ball, you win. It actually hasn't been the case in his career. So I get it that you have to lock him up, but this is not exactly a win for the Giants.
I think it is, though, because I think that the Odell Beckham contract is entirely independent of the Eli Manning decline, which I think is evident. I think the numbers paint a very obvious picture, and the team struggles last year. Listen, if he was still a top 10 or 12 quarterback, you don't go 3-13. I always tell people that, sometimes during an NFL offseason, you put together this checklist of all the things you want a team to do. For the Giants, I'm sure there were many fans that said, we want to upgrade at running back, we want to get Odell Beckham Jr. locked up, we want to find a left tackle, we want to find the new quarterback. Well, there's only so many things you can accomplish given there's a salary cap, given there's limited resources, and if you're going to take a quarterback at number 2, it means you're not taking a player in Saquon Barkley that GM Dave Gettleman has called a potential Hall of Famer one day, a gold jacket player, as he described him right around the draft. I'm with you that Eli Manning probably at some point will be the next item on the checklist for the Giants. The one thing I will say is this, is that the position that you can least afford to swing and miss at the NFL level is quarterback, right? Because if you are not entirely convinced that whether it was Sam Darnold or, based on players available at pick 2, Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen,
Josh
Allen, maybe Lamar Jackson was the long-term answer in New York, then that's enough reason to bypass one of them and take Saquon Barkley, separate and apart from what you feel about Barkley as a player.
What impact does this contract signing, though, have on the expectations for the Giants season? Like, no one thought that Odell was going to hold out. I mean, he was there in camp. He's going to play regardless. But now that you know he's there and you're looking ahead and you got a rookie running back in Saquon, or if you're a Giants fan, do you have more reason to be like, oh, yeah, man, this year we're going to surprise everyone in the NFC East? Or you're like, you know what? We got the people we're going to have anyway, and we should be happy with whatever we get because we're not going to win the division.
Maybe this is just me being a prisoner of the moment, but part of me has been reminded that 2 years ago the Giants were in the playoffs since this Odell Beckham Jr. deal got done. Mm-hmm. It was perhaps also a subconscious reminder that he missed most of last year, which played a massive part in their struggles on offense last season. I think if you're the Giants, every team goes into the NFL season with an abundance of hope, right? We spend the offseason in some ways packaging 32 separate deliveries of hope, right? Everybody is on paper much better right now. But I think for the Giants, managing expectations is probably still important. I don't think they are the second best team in their division.
No.
I don't think they're the third best team in their division.
I think
they
most
might
people would
finish
agree with
last.
You. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The issue that I have with the idea of being patient is like most teams that are willing to be sort of patient by design are doing so with a young quarterback in tow. The Giants are one of those rare teams that they may not be capable of winning the division this year, and they also have, as Adnan brought up, a 37-yard quarterback. So it's an interesting time right now for the Giants, but I think in the grand scheme, they made enough strides this offseason to feel really good about their overall investments.
They have two pillars, they believe, in their organization going forward. Beckham and Barkley.
Yep.
They just have to find a third that would be the replacement for Eli Manning.
And that may not be easy if you know in the NFL.
It may not be.
Yep.
The ultimate insider, Field Yates, now discusses insider trading.
How about that?
I've been waiting for this segment. This is the sole reason that you're here, really, for my entertainment and Michael's as well. Michael Kendricks, the former Eagle, now the Browns. Insider trading is going to plead guilty in the coming weeks. Don't know what kind of punishment he's going to get, but have you ever heard of a story like this happening?
No, I haven't. I got the press release from his representation this morning, and I thought, you get in our industry, we certainly get plenty of press releases on a variety of different topics. Certainly the first time I've gotten one related to insider trading, and you do a double take. No, I did not just read insider trading, and not only that, but he conceded guilt. Right? I mean, he said, "I've done wrong. I've erred." Can't imagine. Is there any team that has been more fit for? Within their season, Hard Knocks, we have just gotten gold after gold after more gold for the Browns during this Hard Knock season. I'll be interested to see. I think next week might be the finale of Hard Knocks, or close to it, because the season is so close to being around the corner. It'll be fascinating to see any layers, and maybe we won't see anything related to the situation because of the legal gravity of it. But yeah, didn't think I would be talking about inside linebacker Michael Kendricks as an insider trader, right?
Well, the funny part about this is during Hard Knocks, he was giving the Browns insider info on the Eagles basically during one episode, right? So now he gets busted for real insider trading and could face a heavy fine. I mean, Martha Stewart went to jail. She went to prison for insider trading. Yeah. So I'm just saying, I'm not trying to put that on him, but I will say this. I think for a lot of fans, and maybe even like your reaction initially, Phil, when you looked at it, you're like, wait, insider trading, what did I? There are a lot of professional athletes who are involved in investing. Some of them are even day traders. When I was working in Lexington, the Bengals had their training camp in Georgetown outside of Lexington, and I can't remember the puncher's name at the time, but we did a feature story on him because when he wasn't in meetings or on the field, he was literally in his apartment or dorm, whatever they had at the time, doing not insider trading, day trading.
Crazy.
We did a whole thing on it. These guys are into it. And if you're into something competitive, what are you always doing? Looking for an edge. Right. If someone gives you the hookup on some information, it's not to say like, okay. That's like getting a tip on the backtrack of a horse. Like, yo, I'm gonna bet this horse because the trainer told me this in insider trading. But this case, would go to jail for it.
Be careful, NFL players. Be careful.
Field's portfolio, by the way, unsurpassed here.
I wish because it's versatile. It's diversified.
I'll take that. Ooh, I like that.
Fantasy Focus Football Podcast, of course, NFL Insider. Follow him on Twitter as well, at Field Yates. Thanks, man. Always
Thanks, guys.
Need game tickets? Find your seats at Vivid Seats, the official ticket partner of ESPN. Enter promo code ESPN at checkout and receive 10% off your orders today. Vivid Seats. Straight ahead, a Knicks fan sells his rooting allegiance, which made us think, is there such a thing as a happy fan? Find out next on the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio. Adnan Virk and Michael Eaves hanging out with you. When you're hiring, you don't want to waste time sorting through dozens of irrelevant resumes. You want an efficient way to get to a short list of qualified candidates. That's why you need Indeed.com. Post a job in minutes, set up screener questions based on your job requirements, then zero in on qualified candidates using an intuitive online dashboard. Discover why 3 million businesses use Indeed for hiring. Post a job today at Indeed.com/hire. Search for greatness. Search Indeed.
Guess what? You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it! Thanks once again to Field Yates for stopping by. Major news from the NFL, which Field is now locked in on an NFL Live over on the TV side, which is that Aaron Rodgers believed to be a 4-year, $134 million extension. So major news for, if not the best quarterback in football, the second best behind Tom Brady, depending upon your perspective. The Packers locking up their man. Could be $100 million guaranteed. We'll get more details on that and tell you about it at the top of the hour. Adnan Virk and Michael Eaves right now. Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. So fandom for sale. A disgruntled New York Knicks fan, Evan Perlmutter, 33 years old, auctioning off his fanhood, which I totally respect, Michael, because the Knicks are dreadful and they've been for an awfully long time. And I was a fan of theirs prior to the Raptors' inception, so I've suffered with others as well. And I get the fact, George Carlin famously said this with his routine. They go, oh, you're a fair weather fan. He goes, yeah. Team stinks. I got better things to do than follow a lousy team. And when they're good again, I'm going to follow them and cheer them on.
Especially as it relates to spending my money to go see them play.
Having said that, I would never auction off one's fanhood. I mean, even I get as a Knicks fan, you've been dealing with misery and stuff. I'm with you. I'd rather just not pay as avid attention to the team as I would when they're going to stink. In this case, though, Evan Perlmutter said, enough's enough. I'm auctioning off my fanhood. He went on eBay, and there's a winning bid for $3,450. For $3,450, that's pretty cheap to give up your life fanhood, I think, to now spend the upcoming season rooting for the Lakers. The auction was titled, Infuriated New York Knicks Fan Has Had Enough Selling My Fanhood. He said he thought it would provide good content for the YouTube channel. So he's now rooting for LeBron and the Lakers. He's giving up on the Knicks.
See, all right, I think you're looking at it from the wrong vantage point in terms of it not being that much money. How much would you be willing to pay for someone else's fandom? That's the real thing. I can't believe you got $3,000.
Yeah.
All right, now, as it relates to me selling
you wouldn't
mine,
give up Kentucky for
absolutely
$100,000.
No. I will say this. I don't have any more professional sports allegiance anymore.
Right.
I used to as a kid, clearly growing up and even into my adult years. But eventually, because of what I do and some of the teams that I covered, it just went away. It wasn't a conscious decision. It's just I didn't want to go to work every day and be emotionally invested in the outcome of the game. Because I moved to Los Angeles as a Lakers fan. I moved to Los Angeles as a Dodgers fan.
Right.
Then I started covering those teams.
Right.
It's just hard to do, right?
Yeah.
It sort of fell away naturally. It's fine. The same thing happened to me when I was at Kentucky. So I'm born and raised in Kentucky, went to the school. My first TV job was for the CBS affiliate in Lexington, and we were like the hub of the Kentucky Sports Network. So we would broadcast games throughout the state that weren't picked up by, the national outlets. So when I started covering the team, I also noticed it start to go away. It came back when I moved to Los Angeles, and I wasn't covering the team on a regular basis.
Right.
But to give that up, nah, man. Because it's so much a part of my culture.
Yes.
Growing up, I can't imagine not rooting for them, and I can't imagine rooting for someone else. So he basically someone for the Lakers bought his fandom, so now he's going to cheer for the Lakers. Like someone from Alabama coming to me and saying, yo, you got to root for Alabama football now? We'll give you $100,000? Nah, man.
Right.
I can't. I physically could not do it.
$500,000.
Man, we need to talk
about that pause. Like he still wouldn't do it.
Even
if he would, he paused on $500,000.
You're talking about giving
this guy loves you,
part of my identity. Like everyone who knows me knows where I'm from.
Right. Absolutely.
You may have known I lived in Los Angeles, but I'm from Kentucky. Dude, we're talking life-changing money here. It's got to be like well over $1 million. It's got to be like.
Whenever I work with somebody new, literally the first time Michael and I did Sports Center, I like to know their sports teams. So I said to him, "So your teams?" He gave the exact answer you just said. He goes, "Listen, I used to be a Dodgers fan. I used to be a Lakers fan, but now it's just UK." So I think that I agree with you. Your fandom in particular is even more stronger because it's just one team, right? For me, you're going to go, okay, Raptors, Blue Jays, Flyers, Eagles. I've got Roger Federer. I have lots of interest.
You're all over the place in that regard.
Right. But if you just say, hey, there's one team, one thing, for you, it's like Van Pelt in Maryland. Like,
no,
you just never give it up.
No, but I could see you giving up the Philly teams and staying true to Toronto because that's where you're from and that's part of your culture growing up in that area.
Right.
That's easier.
Right.
But to give up something that was part of your child, can you remember living and not going to Maple Leafs games? Think about that, right? You can't imagine that.
I would say this. I'd put Michael Eaves' UK fandom among ESPN personalities top 5. Like, if you just look at any of us and go, oh, that person, Kevin Nagani's a huge Eagles fan, Van Pelt's Maryland.
I'm not as outspoken about it all the time the way they are. But when it comes tournament time and it's go, don't come with me, Josina Anderson with the Tar Heels. Don't come with me with that Jay Williams with Duke. Don't do it.
ESPN Radio presented by Progressive Insurance with insurance for cars, home, boat, motorcycles, RVs, and commercial vehicles. 100 Progressive and Progressive.com. Aaron Rodgers got paid. All that and more. Plus Mark Teixeira. Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio.
That's just a sample of what you'll hear on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Weekdays at 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
There's nothing small about your business. It takes a lot of hard work, and it makes a huge difference. As a thank you, during Dell's annual sale, Dell Small Business is offering up to 40% off select PCs with Intel Core processors. Call them at 877-BUY-DELL to speak with a small business technology advisor today. You'll get tech advice and one-on-one partnership to help your business grow. Give them a call. 877-BUY-DELL.
Great news. There's a quick way you can save money. Switch to Geico. Geico could help you get great coverage at a great price. And it only takes 15 minutes to see if you could save 15% or more on car insurance. Go to geico.com today and see how much you could save.
This is the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast. I'm Stephen A.
We're in the books. One more hour to go. Thrilled that you're all with us today. Adnan Virk and Michael Eaves, Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80 and ESPN News. Appreciate all of you spending a little bit of time with us. Aaron Rodgers getting paid. Mark Teixeira on the Yankees' chances to catch the Red Sox, plus who in the world is going to start for the Eagles at quarterback. Those topics and others coming up. But the flu could be just around the corner. Be prepared with a flu shot from CVS Pharmacy, including those at Target or Minute Clinic. Get your flu shot today. No appointment necessary. Visit cvs.com/flu for details. We've got you covered at CVS Pharmacy. You got the details there on Aaron Rodgers' contract? I see this is a 4-year extension, base value of $134 million, and includes $103 million in guarantees.
And it's not just the $103 million guaranteed. It's also when he's going to receive that money. According to Adam Schefter, $67 million of that money will be handed to Aaron Rodgers before the end of the calendar year. By the time we get to St. Patrick's Day of 2019, he will have more than $80 million of that 103 guaranteed in his bank account. So oftentimes we talk about contracts and what's taking so long and the players going back and forth, and it seems obvious you would pay a certain player this much money, yada, yada. These are some of the things that get tied up in the negotiations. Not just how much money I'm getting, but how am I getting it? When am I getting it? And Aaron Rodgers will have more than $80 million of his 103 guaranteed by the time we get to March 17th of 2019.
See, when I heard the $100 million, I just figured it'd be a longer deal. Kind of like we were saying. We thought it was 6 or 7 years, 8 years. Yeah. So this is, I suppose, an enormous win for both sides. The team says, well, we don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going to be successful 7 years from now, so we'll give you a short deal. Mm-hmm. And Rodgers is laughing because he goes, great, I get all my money up front, and I don't know how long I'm going to play either.
Correct.
And if I can play at this level and I make this deal look not puny by comparison, but like I'm worth it, then I'll get another 2 or 3 year deal worth $30 million a year.
And I'll tell you why he's worth it. All right. Since becoming the starter in 2008, Aaron Rodgers has missed 18 games.
Mm-hmm.
Without him as a starter, the Packers have gone 6-11-1. Winning percentage, 36%. When he starts, since he's become a starter, their winning percentage is better than 66%. Put that up against any quarterback in the league, right? Maybe Tom Brady's up there with that, right? He's worth $100 million. It's not a question that he's worth that money. Projected over a long time, he's going to play 5, 6, 7 more years. Maybe he does, but you know what? He can also get a new deal.
Yeah.
He can get a new deal,
exactly.
But he's worth the money.
Right. This is not his final contract. He can still get another one after this.
No, he's worth the money for that franchise.
Also worth the money, my man Mark Teixeira. He joins us right now on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. What a thrill to call the Yankees game with Eduardo Perez, who's currently listening and is now going to get a flu shot after that read I gave, and Tim Kirkchin. Yankees lost on Monday, but such a cool place to be there. And Tex, of course, knows the Yankees as well as anyone, having played there for the team. Tex, how we doing today, man? Thanks for coming on.
I'm great, gentlemen. Thanks for having me.
Crazy to think the Yankees, Tex, prior to this weekend, they shaved off 3.5 games in 42 hours. And for anyone who thought, well, this thing's over, it's a wrap, the Red Sox are going to win the AL East. Well, Chris Sale is hurt. We don't know when he's coming back. And the Yankees are getting those reinforcements. Aaron Boone telling us Didi Gregorius could start running full health around Wednesday. The Judge still could be a little bit longer, but it's not out of the realm of possibility, is it, Tex, that the Yankees could catch the Red Sox?
It's not, and I think the main thing for the Yankees is they still have 6 games head-to-head, and that gives them a little bit of confidence that, hey, if we can get this thing to 4 or 5 games, which wouldn't be a stretch in August, we have some games head-to-head, by the end of August, we have some head-to-head games in September that if we take care of business, we can win this division.
How much pressure do you think the Yankees are putting on the Red Sox to turn around something that they haven't experienced all year long, and that's just struggle? Like Boston got out to a great start, and all of a sudden they just blew the Yankees out of the water. We felt as if there was a while. Now they're dealing with adversity for the first time this season, and they look over their shoulder, and there's a team that's pulling up in their rearview right now.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, the Yankees had their stretch where they looked like one of the worst teams in baseball for a while, and they started to win it again. And so now the Red Sox have to get through that point. And the Red Sox by no means are playing poorly. But if you have a team that's behind you that is really good like the Yankees are, and they're on pace to win over 100 games, all it takes is a little bit of a slip up. So yeah, the pressure's on. I mean, the pressure's on both these teams. But if I'm the Red Sox, I kind of look behind me and say I feel good about my 6.5 game lead, but I know that I can't relax at all, or I can't have any more missteps, or this Yankees team will be right on my heels.
Chatting with Mark Teixeira. You can always see him on Baseball Tonight's Sunday Night Countdown. Right now, we're on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Adnan Virk and Michael Eaves. Tex, I loved your tweet when Gleyber Torres got called up wearing number 25. Because now, listen, for years from now, people are going to go, hey, look, there's another Mark Teixeira jersey, even if it's a Gleyber Torres jersey, right?
It's funny. The reason I said that is that my kids, they're still young. I mean, they're between 8 and 12, and so anytime, we're in New York or we're watching a game on TV, they see 25, they go, hey, there's Dad's jersey. I'm like, yeah, of course that's Dad's jersey. It's not Torres. It's not Jason Giambi. Doesn't, no matter who wore number 25 throughout the history of the Yankees, because, the real jerseys at least don't have the names on the back. When you see a Yankees 25 jersey, you got to think about Tex.
There you go.
I'm glad that Torres is a stud because there's a lot more 25 jerseys flying off the shelf.
Hey, let me ask you about another guy for the Yankees where everyone's chiming to have his jersey, and that is Giancarlo Stanton. You take a look at his numbers this year, and last night I think he just started his 82nd consecutive game. He's been dealing with a hamstring or whatever, but he's been out there, especially when the Yankees needed him, when so many other guys were injured. Batting .277, on base .349, slugging .520, 32 bombs, 82 RBI. But I get the sense and maybe the feeling, Tex, that in some regards he's sort of been underappreciated this season in New York, and maybe by the Yankee fans themselves. To that, what do you say?
He has been, Michael. He's been underappreciated. But the fact of the matter is he was out of his mind last year, MVP, over 1,000 OPS, 50-plus homers. I mean, he had such high expectations coming in here. And I tell Yankee fans, listen, you can't win the MVP every year. I mean, it's a little bit what A-Rod went through his first few years in pinstripe. Like, yeah, he might have these crazy numbers attached to him, but the fact of the matter is be happy with your 900 OPS and your 35, 40 homers and 100 RBIs, because that helps win games. And I think Giancarlo Stanton, until he wins a World Series in New York, which this Yankee team over the next few years has the talent, obviously, to do that, I think he'll always be, okay, give me more. And it just comes to territory. I mean, I was watching the game last night, and the Boo Birds were out in the sixth inning when they were down 4-2. It's like that's just the way New York fans are, and you got to love it, because once you do pick it up, once you do win that World Series or have that MVP year, they're behind you 100%. There's nothing better.
Talking right now, Mark Teixeira on ESPN Radio. Tex, when we were in Williamsport, you were saying, don't worry about the Astros. They kind of did this last year, had a bit of a swoon, and now they're getting healthy. Altuve's been tremendous since coming back, and they've got their core four now ready to go. Having said that, this Oakland A's team is going to the playoffs, and they could make life miserable for the Yankees in a one-game playoff. They're 1.5 back of Houston. Looking at these numbers, the bullpen's ridiculous. Triton's awesome. Starters have actually been pretty good, better than I think people realize. The Fire's pickup's good, Manaea, Cahill, etc. And how about that offense? All those guys do is hit home runs, right?
They do. This is a team that I love watching because it's a bunch of no-names. I mean, these guys inside of baseball, yeah. I mean, you have some incredibly talented players. You have some all-stars, Chapman and Lowry is an all-star this year, one of those guys that you root for. But, nationwide, because they play on the West Coast, the rest of the world doesn't really know who these A's are. And I think it's fun to watch them, kind of attack the Astros here. The Astros have the number one pitching staff in all of baseball. And that's why so many people say these guys are going to win it all again, because they have the best pitching staff, and their offense is now healthy. And so, the way that I look at this playoff is who's going to be healthy, who's going to get hot, and this A's team, like you said, Adnan, because they hit so many home runs, because their bullpen is locked down, they can make a run. I've seen lots of great teams that just don't necessarily have the thump in their lineup. Look at the Red Sox last season. If you can't hit home runs in the playoffs, it's just very difficult to win a lot of games, because you're facing the best pitchers and they're not giving up a bunch of hits. So this A's team has a chance. I think they're one of the top 5 teams in baseball right now, and they're going to get into the playoffs and make a run for it.
Mark Teixeira joins us here on the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80, and ESPN News. Oftentimes we in NBA Twitter land, we talk about a team after it wins a championship. It doesn't really go that hard in the regular season. It just waits to get to the playoffs to kind of turn it on. And it's easier to do that in the NBA because you have so many teams that make the playoffs, where baseball is a little more restrictive when it comes to the number of teams that actually get to the postseason. But do you think some of this, from the Astros standpoint, Mark, could be attributed to that? It's like, we just won the World Series. Let's not kill ourselves right now. We know we're the best team. Let's get to the playoffs and turn it on then.
I think there's a little bit of that, Michael. The only problem is Oakland's only a game and a half out. Right. I mean, we're talking about the Red Sox worrying about the Yankees being 6.5 up. The Astros would love a 6.5 game lead right now. So, I mean, I think, early mid-season, when you have guys that are a little banged up, yeah, let's put them on the DL for a couple of weeks. Let them get healthy. Don't rush this guy back, or don't take too many chances with a pitcher that might be a little sore. Now, when you're only a game and a half up, you got to turn it on. And I think this Astros team, now that they're healthy and Altuve's back and Correa and Springer, they're all in the lineup together. They haven't been in the lineup together in quite some time. I think they look at themselves right now in that locker room and say, all right, guys, like, we are the best team. Let's go prove it. We're way better than a game and a half over the A's. And, we've got yet 5 weeks to prove that.
Last one for you, Tex. We'll let you out of here on an easy one. So, I've been confused for Chris Chelios before. Get a little Ben Stiller. You showed me this comedian who's very famous, Sebastian Maniscalco. Months ago you showed me. You said he's your guy. You've seen him in New York and all that kind of stuff. And the other day I got a message from a buddy of mine. And he goes, I'm watching Sebastian Maniscalco, and I'm thinking he looks exactly like you. Now, I don't see it at all, and you know this guy well, you know me well. Do you think I look at all like this guy?
I think it's a stretch. I wonder how many adult beverages this guy had when he was watching Sebastian. But I can see maybe the hair a little bit, maybe the face shape a little bit, but I don't think so, man. I mean, you're a good-looking guy, Adnan, but I don't know about that one.
You know what? If you were right with the other two, if Chris Chelios and who was the other one?
Ben Stiller.
And Ben Stiller, if they had a baby, it would be Adnan Virk. You put those two together, then we got you. But that dude right there, I don't know who that is, but he looks nothing like
Listen, you're good at this. Who does Teixeira look like? I can't think of what we had to cast the movie. They said for
you know what people say, Adnan?
Yeah.
Prince William. give Prince William a full head of hair, and that's what everyone says. And you know what? It's not bad. I mean, there's worse people I could be compared to.
Somebody tweeted in Rob Riggle, but that's not fair. I think Prince William is a better one. Texas better.
I don't know who
Rob
that
Riggle.
is.
Yeah, he's a comedian,
but see, you have to do the same sex baby though.
Biggs?
Jason Biggs in Tex.
Yeah, that's not bad.
That's not bad. American Pie.
Man. I don't know if they have those great Brazilian genes, man. I don't know.
Mark Teixeira, appreciate the time, man. Be well.
Enjoyed it, fellas. Have a good one.
All right, you can always catch Mark Teixeira. Baseball tonight, Sunday Night Countdown. His thoughts on who he looks like and, of course, what's happening right now in Major League Baseball. I did want to touch on this. I know you said you've kind of renounced the fandom, but as a Dodgers fan or once were one, it's crazy how they get Machado and you think, all right, now they're going to take off, best team in the National League. But this Kenley Jansen story, dude, I mean, anytime I hear minor heart surgery, I go, there's nothing minor about it. It's a heart. And the fact that he said he feels he gets to stop taking the heart medication because that was adversely affecting him. I mean, it's a crazy reset. He just became a dad for the third time. He said a heart issue. He has been, unfortunately, having an awful season. And the Dodgers right now, they're only a game out. You know L.A., they probably thinking like the sky's falling. They're only a game out of the D-backs and the Rockies, but it felt like to those in baseball they're going to take off, and that hasn't been the case, and they might not make the playoffs.
Because coming off of last year, everyone thought the Dodgers were probably still the best team in the National League, and then the trade deadline, you get Manny Machado, like, oh, okay, now they had some issues early on with injuries, Justin Turner, Clayton Kershaw, but now they're ready to go, but then, like, this happens to Kenley Jansen, who is as important to their overall success as any player out there, but think about this, and I know this is hard for the average fan to do, but if you have something going on in your life from a health standpoint, it affects everything that you do that day, especially something as major, as you said, as a heart condition. So now you're Kenley Jansen, you're going out there to the mound, you're trying to get back to where you were. You probably feel some type of way that you had to go away for a couple of weeks while your boys are still out there trying to get you back to the playoffs. But that's going to be on your mind. And when there's doubt, there's lack of performance. And that's what we saw from Kenley Jansen. And now to the point that he had so much doubt. He lost so much confidence. He wants to stop taking some medication that could potentially keep him alive. Think about that for a second. Like, who would be willing to do that?
When I saw that story, but he's going to stop the medication. I'm like, wait, weren't you just away for this heart procedure? Now you're not going to. I mean, are you sure about this?
And I hate to do this, to bring this up as a comparison.
Yeah.
It's the same thing that happened to Hank Gathers. He stopped taking the medication because it made him lethargic during games. Yeah. I don't want to say that's the Kenley Jansen situation, but it's on his mind. And the Dodgers still have time. I do think, top to bottom, all things healthy, they're probably the best team out there.
Yeah, definitely a lot of talent, but it's a little surprising that they have not been able to pull away. ESPN Radio brought to you by Pennzoil Synthetics, taking synthetic motor oil to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. The major story of the day, Adnan Virk, Michael Eaves, in for Stephen A. Smith today on the ESPN Radio, is that Aaron Rodgers signing a massive deal with the Green Bay Packers. Nobody's more locked in than ESPN NFL insider Adam Schefter. Shefty, what are the details? What do you got for us?
Well, we have a 4-year, $133.5 million extension. We've got $103 million in guaranteed money. We've got a record amount of cash flow, which we haven't really seen. I think that's an important feature in deals as teams and players try to construct the outlines for these deals over time. What you're looking at in this particular deal basically is $67 million will be paid to Rodgers by the end of this year, over $80 million will be paid to him by St. Patrick's Day. And like I said, $103 million guaranteed. It resets the quarterback market. It tacks on 4 more years to the 2 years he had left. So Rodgers is under contract to the Packers now for the next 6 years. He's 34. That means he'll be in Green Bay with this contract until age 40. So you're looking at a guy here who in all probability is going to finish his career as a Green Bay Packer on a record deal. We've seen quarterback deals spiral upwards this offseason, from Jimmy Garoppolo to Kirk Cousins to Matt Ryan, and now to the biggest of all, Aaron Rodgers. And in a deal where basically he resets the market, he comes in a week where Odell Beckham Jr. became the highest paid wide receiver in the game. It comes in a weekend where Aaron Rodgers becomes the highest paid quarterback in the game. And I would imagine before the start of the season, we'll have a deal for Aaron Donald that makes him the highest paid defensive player in NFL history as well.
Well, Adam, you mentioned this clearly resets the quarterback market for the NFL, but the cash flow thing that you brought up, which I also found very interesting, how this money is going to be dispersed. What impact do you think that will have on other contracts going forward, or you think this would just be something within the quarterback negotiations?
Well, it'll be a benchmark, but again, how many quarterbacks in the game today are as good as Aaron Rodgers? So, when there's a quarterback deal coming up, and I don't know who's next here, I'd have to sit down and look at it. Can you say that guy is as good as Aaron Rodgers? Now, if you just picked out a quarterback, let's say Alex Smith redid his deal, Phillip Rivers wants to redo his deal. Mm-hmm. I think most would agree he's a great quarterback, but he's not as good as Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
And so there's the ceiling. But then again, over time, the cap goes up, the money goes up, the prices go up, the contracts go up. So someone's going to pass Aaron Rodgers at some point in time. I don't know whether that's 2 years down the line or 4 years down the line, but he should hold the title of the highest paid player and the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, I would think, for at least another year or two before somebody laps him up.
From pay structure, though, do you think guys are going to be wanting way more of their guaranteed money as soon as they can get it?
Well, that's not going to be any different. That's always been the case. NFL players are smart enough to know that you take the guarantees, and you could sign a 10-year, $100 million contract today. If it had $10 that were guaranteed, the deal really would not be worth very much at all. So I think players are savvy to that. They know what's right and what's not. They've always pushed for cash flow. They've always pushed for guarantees. I know it was important for Odell Beckham Jr. to get that, and Aaron Rodgers clearly got that today.
Talking right now with Adam Schefter on ESPN Radio. Schefter, was the plan always to get it done before the season?
Adnan, I think what they wanted to do was they wanted to have this deal in place before training camp. And I think we were in Green Bay to broadcast NFL Live there when the Packers opened camp on their 100th season. And I think there was some disappointment from Aaron Rodgers that it was not done at that point in time. I think if you read between the lines and just heard the tone of his voice, I don't think he was overly pleased that it wasn't done. I think everybody wanted to have it done, and for whatever reason, they couldn't get it done. And they went back and forth, I think, on this cash flow issue that we talked about with those specific numbers. I think that pushed the bar forward here and enabled this deal to get done so that Aaron Rodgers is signing today, 4-year extension, and he will be tied to the Packers until he's 40 years old.
I hate to bring up this name, Aaron Donald, anything.
Well, look, you heard Sean McVay talk yesterday, sounding a sense of optimism, and I think there's optimism because both sides recognize they have to get it done. They know they need to get this done. Aaron Donald can't and won't go into the season playing under the contract he has. And because of that, I think that both sides are motivated, and I think we'll have a deal in place on Aaron Donald before the regular season begins.
Terrific stuff, Schefter. We appreciate you, man.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
All right, that is Adam Schefter breaking the news. Aaron Rodgers signing his 4-year, $134 million extension. $80 million by St. Patty's Day.
Hey, that's a boss move right there. Are you going to give me guaranteed money? Well, how about you guarantee you give it to me by March 17th? That's when I guarantee you want to be. I want that much.
We got a lot of day drinking going on St. Patty's Day.
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, it's like, how many contracts actually startle you? Do numbers ever surprise you?
Not anymore.
Not anymore, right? You got $100 million?
Anymore. I remember when Ricky Henderson got $3 million. That was a big deal. Then Jose Canseco
got the 5 year. Yes,
that was such a big deal.
Wow.
Or even like Magic Johnson, he signed a 25-year contract worth $25 million with the Lakers, which, at the time I was like, oh my God, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
No, everything is relative now. So it's like, maybe is LeBron worth $1 billion? Like who? If someone gave LeBron, if a Chinese basketball team gave LeBron $1 billion, would you be stunned by that?
At this point, no. I'm like, all right, fine. He's 40 years old. He's supposed to play a couple more years. I'm like, sure. He finishes up the Lakers.
He's worth $1 billion.
Right. He's a global entity. Funny you mentioned I remember the Canseco vividly. $5 million a year, like 1990.
It was a huge deal.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my God.
Jim Rice, I believe, was the first $1 million player.
Nolan Ryan, I think.
Nolan Ryan.
Yeah.
Maybe Jim was first two. It was a landmark going. Who was the highest paid player at one point, I guess. And everything kept going up after that. I mean, Cal Ripken got more than Jose Canseco. I remember when that happened.
Yeah.
And so for all the young people, we're old. You don't remember things that happened in the 80s, but trust me, it was a big deal then. But nah, man, like the way they throw money around now and the way the economy is built on, well, I'm not trying to get into that, but there's a lot of money out there.
Correct.
Someone's going to get it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's professional athletes. You know, I was stunned when I found out The Weeknd was making more than $100 million a year. That stunned me.
Wow. That's incredible. How many
last year or 2 years ago?
Around? Like, he's had a few hits, but
concert touring. That's where they make all their money.
Right.
He made, I think, that year's either last year or year before. He was the second highest earning musician behind Beyonce. He made more than $100 million in a year. The Weeknd, dog.
Yeah, that's shocking.
The Weeknd.
Like, this isn't like,
it's not Beyonce.
Drake or Beyonce.
It's not Justin Timberlake.
Right. Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah. No disrespect to The Weeknd, but $100 million?
Yeah.
Because he can't fill his face? Come on.
I was going to say, there's like 3 hits, and that's the biggest one.
Come on.
That's it.
You know what it was? It was a lot of those suburban moms buying the soundtrack to, was it Shades of Grey, 50 Shades of Grey, because he had that song.
That's right.
They went to the movies. They got turned out.
Weeknd got paid. What's going to happen with regards to the Eagles and their franchise quarterback? Is Carson Wentz going to be the starter when the season begins against the Falcons? We'll discuss it next. Adnan Virk, Michael Eaves sitting in. Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio.
I'm a squeaky toy, and I've got one job, getting chomped on by this little ankle sniffer. So pardon me for feeling inept compared to Geico, who does so much more. Like while I'm getting slobbered on, Geico is creating cool technology like their mobile app, which lets people pay their bills or file a claim. Plus, Geico is the fastest growing auto insurer for the last 10 years. Is it too much for me to ask for one more feature? Fast and friendly claim service like Geico, maybe? Oh, great. I'm getting buried again.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Stephen A. Smith Show brought to you by Discover Card. We treat you like you'd treat you, which is why we think annual fees are ridiculous. We bet you do too. To see all the ways Discover is looking out for you, go to discover.com or give us a call at 1-800-DISCOVER. Adnan Virk and Michael Eaves joining forces today. Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio, ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80, and ESPN News. The major news of the day, Aaron Rodgers signing a breathtaking deal. 4 years, $134 million, $103 million guaranteed, and $80 million by St. Patrick's Day. A pleasure to bring in former Packer Super Bowl champion A.J. Hawk right now on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, who played with the Packers from 2006 to 2014, an 11-year NFL vet, and the host of the Hawk Cast. AJ, your reaction to Aaron Rodgers getting paid?
Well, I can't say I was surprised, Adnan. If all of a sudden it scored across the screen that he got 4 years, $300 million, I'd say, okay, all right, sounds about right. Like whatever. We all knew he was going to be the highest paid player ever. The question was how much was it going to be, and I do like that number where you said, $80 million before St. Patrick's Day. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, man. That's awesome.
That's great. Yeah, good for him. And that's what you want, as a player. And they want as much money as early as you possibly can in that contract. And I think this is one of those deals, although the numbers seem crazy, it seems like it's fair for both sides.
AJ, when we think of the Packers modern day right now, we do think of Aaron Rodgers, and it's kind of hard not to. But for the people who've never been to that area, Wisconsin, and just don't know the culture there, can you put into words what he means to that organization and that fan base here in 2018?
He is everything. That's the thing. When he is in the lineup and he's healthy, it's really difficult to count the Packers out. You when you go over and you say, okay, well, who from the NFC has a chance to win the Super Bowl this year? Well, if the Packers have Aaron Rodgers, it doesn't really matter who else is there. They are going to be in the conversation. Now, obviously, only being able to get to the Super Bowl one time and win it in his time, I feel like, I know myself when I was there as a defense, we definitely let our offense down at times. We knew how special of a player he was, and we had a ton of talent all over the place. But I guess it just shows you how tough it is to be that consistent and get there year after year.
Having said that, do you believe he's the best player in the NFL today?
Yeah, I'm very biased. I'm close with him. I played with him for a long time, and but I just think when you look at every single aspect of the game, he has everything. He really does. Now, I know Tom Brady has 5 rings. There's obviously a bunch of other guys in that conversation, but I came in and played 2 years with Brett Favre and then transitioned to Aaron Rodgers as a starting quarterback. So I got to play with some great guys. And just seeing what Aaron can do, both mentally, physically, he has every single tool possible. But then what he's able to do with his legs, I think, is what sets him apart. He's very athletic. He knows how to move up and back in the pocket and move around and buy time. And once he's out scrambling and his eyes are downfield, I mean, it's an absolute nightmare for a defense.
AJ, what do you make of the way Aaron's become more vocal lately, not just about his position, but issues in the league?
I like it. I think there's too many guys that are franchise players that are just cliche machines. And I get it. I understand why they are that way, because you don't want to alienate a fan base or alienate anyone in the front office or really just cause any kind of controversy outside of what's going on the football field and in the facility. But I like that. I remember when, Adnan, I'm sure you guys remember when Kobe Bryant, as he got older, I would watch some of the interviews Kobe would do, and it was amazing just how open and honest he was, just telling us exactly how he felt. It seemed like you were really talking to Kobe, like Kobe wasn't doing an interview. And I love that. And I think that's something that, I don't know, I think just when Aaron feels strong about something, he's not scared to step out there and give his opinion, which I think that's a little bit refreshing when it comes to the NFL, when they kind of want to, if you're the face of the franchise, you're this quarterback getting all this money, like, okay, just do your job, just get in your playbook. You shouldn't have any other things you enjoy off the field. You should just sit there and study your playbook 19 hours a day and go to work. But no, I mean, the truth is that's not how it is. And I like when we get to really see and hear some of these guys' views.
Yeah, oftentimes that comes with age, maturity, just having more self-awareness as you get older. He's 34 years old, and we were talking earlier, AJ, about, Tom Brady, 42. Is that the benchmark now for Aaron Rodgers? He signs this deal. Maybe you get another deal. Like, how much longer do you see him being able to play, not just play in the NFL, but play at this level that we've seen from him the last 10 years?
Well, he's 34 now in his 14th year, and you can go back and watch the film. He's not slowing down, that's for sure. I think he's getting better. He doesn't have any steady decline or anything in his play. Obviously, that's why the Packers felt like they could pay him all that money, because he is still getting better and better. But yeah, of course, I think he's talked about playing until he's 40 or into his 40s. I think once you get that age and you're playing at such a high level, he'll get that question every single year. And why not continue to play when you still love it? You still have your health, and you know that what you're doing is something that a lot of people can't do. So it's I could easily see him playing into his 40s.
Last one for you, AJ. Negotiating with the Packers, do you think it's different than it could be with another team? Obviously, there's nothing quite like Green Bay, and you just feel like it's more of a familial atmosphere. Is it a little bit different, a little more player-friendly?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I know my 9 years there, I was blown away at just everything about the Packers organization, like first class from top to bottom, everywhere you look. And it's definitely a different feel than other places. It's very unique with not having an owner. So, yeah, it's very different. The people there are just you guys have ever been there and you go to a game, it's a special place in Lambeau Field, and how the people that support the Packers and the front office people, the players, we feel that. And I think that it probably was a little different. That's why I think it was great that the negotiations never seemed to take a negative turn throughout this whole process. And it's great they got it done before the regular season started. I'm sure Aaron wanted it done before, and the team as well. So now they can just move forward and try to go make a run for Super Bowl.
Super Bowl champion, AJ Hawk. Check him out on Twitter at official AJ Hawk, an 11-year NFL veteran, obviously played for the Packers, had a great run, and the host of the Hawkcast. Really appreciate the time, man. Great perspective on Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. And I'm a big fan of the Cinephile, man. You're great.
Oh, dude, that's amazing. We got to get you on the pod now.
Got to come back and talk movies now. Look at that. Here we go.
I don't know movies like you do, but I appreciate what you do. I'm a fan.
Oh, you're a good man, AJ. Wow, you're now my favorite Packer of all time. This is great.
Thanks, AJ. Thanks for coming.
Appreciate you, man.
You can watch me on SportsCenter, AJ. Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I do.
Just kidding, dude. I was totally kidding.
AJ Hawk's the best.
It was a Randy Scott self-deprecating joke.
Yeah.
Little more perspective on Aaron Rodgers in this deal, courtesy of Rob Demoski. Of course, he covers the Packers for us here at ESPN. Yeah. We mentioned that Aaron Rodgers would get $67 million of his guaranteed money before New Year's Day.
Yeah.
Okay? There are only 8 players who have at least $67 million guaranteed over their entire contract right now.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Ryan, Matthew Stafford, Andrew Luck, Kirk Cousins, Jimmy Garoppolo, Alex Smith, Derek Carr, Von Miller. All those dudes have more than $60 million, $70 million for what it is, Von Miller, over their entire contract. Aaron Rodgers is about to get that here in like 4 months. He's going to get $67 million between now and New Year's Eve. Who doesn't want to be Aaron Rodgers right now?
Like we were talking earlier about how the numbers don't astound us, but the $80 million by St. Patrick's, the more I give that thought, that is truly incredible.
I love it from a structure standpoint and just like, yo, you gonna give me this money? I want as much of that money as I can get right now. You know, there used to be a time in the NBA, like I think you can still do it. I don't think most players do it. You can determine how you are paid your annual salary. Right. And there were some dudes who would take the whole thing on one day of the year.
Awesome. Let's just go.
I'm making $15 million this year. I want it on July 1st. All $15 million in my bank account like that.
What would you do? I like it every 2 weeks. Because I'm just.
Oh, you would spend it like that?
I think I just go. If I was an NBA player of 22, I'm going to go nuts.
I would like all of it. That way I can determine how it's dispersed and I can go set up my accounts to get returns on it. Same thing with like, people love getting a huge return for on their taxes. I don't. I want mine to be
get the money up front. I want it all the time.
Let me have my money. I can put it in a bank account or 401. Do whatever I want with it.
I'm with you. I never assume like, I got a $12,000 return. I'm like, well, then you didn't do your taxes properly.
Correct. You
throughout the year there was way too much.
You should try to come around zero. That's your goal.
Yeah. Too much withholding. No withholding coming up next, and we'll discuss who will start for the Eagles at quarterback. Plus, we got some breaking news here as well. Oh yeah, Adam Schefter is tweeting the Jets are trading quarterback Teddy Bridgewater to the New Orleans Saints.
Not just that they're trading him. Where are they trading him to?
Yeah.
New Orleans?
To say Drew Brees' backup now going to be Teddy Bridgewater. Wow. We'll discuss that then. ESPN Radio brought to you by Buffalo Wild Wings, a proud sponsor of the College Game Day Tour. Live this Saturday from South Bend as Michigan takes on Notre Dame. Buffalo Wild Wings. Wings, beer, sports. Coming up next, more of that Schefter news on Bridgewater to the Saints. We'll get into that in just a second. Adnan Virk and Michael Eaves. It is the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio. Here's what I'm a big fan of Simply Safe Home Security. Their system is prepared for everything. If a storm takes out your power, Simply Safe is ready. If your phone line gets cut, Simply Safe is ready. If your keypad gets destroyed, Simply Safe will get you the help you need. Maybe you don't need to be ready for every worst-case scenario, but that's what makes Simply Safe great. It is always ready. That's why I recommend Simply Safe to everyone I know. Go to simplysafe.com/Stephen A today. That's simplysafe.com/Stephen A. simplysafe.com/Stephen A.
Guess what? You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it!
Baseball season rolls along. Tune in tomorrow night. Bryce Harper and the Nationals visiting the Phillies. Could be Bryce Harper's next team, depending on how free agency goes. Presented by Vivid Seats. Coverage begins at 6:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio.com, and the ESPN app. With Michael Eaves, I'm Adnan Virk. Almost time to depart, but some major news in case you're just joining us is Adam Schefter is just killing the game right now. Teddy Bridgewater, you thought he might start for the Jets, huh? Not going to happen. Going to the Saints. Expected to involve draft picks back the other way. Bridgewater going to the Saints. That means Sam Darnold now is going to be the Jets' opening night starter. So 28 of 38, 316 yards, couple touchdowns, one pick this preseason for Bridgewater. Level of surprise? Somewhat?
Somewhat. The level of surprise is to the team. I mean, I thought they would move him once they decided that Sam Darnold was going to be the starter. So cool.
In week 6 or week 7, right?
Whenever that was, right? Yeah. So, but they saw an opportunity here to send him on to get something in return. So good on them. But going to a team that has a very established quarterback in Drew Brees, but hey, is it a pretty good safety blanket for Drew Brees?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Is it something to maybe put in line for the future? I don't know, because you would think Teddy Bridgewater would really want to be a starter now than he would be a backup for, let's say, 2 or 3 years until Drew Brees retires or whatever that is.
Yeah.
So it's intriguing in that regard, but I think from a setup standpoint, having Teddy Bridgewater as your backup to Drew Brees going into the season, hey, man, that's a pretty good security blanket.
And New Orleans' defense a year ago was terrific. They have other weapons now. Like in the past, it was always Drew Brees has to sling it for 5,000 yards. Now they have a protective core around him, and I like them to win the South, and you're right, Bridgewater's just a good security blanket now.
Yeah, a friend of mine, George Foster, used to play in the NFL as offensive lineman, worked for the Rams, Falcons, he just tweeted, he said, I wrote this down somewhere a couple years ago, and I can't find it, but I know I told either Teddy or some friends of mine that he thought the best comparison in the NFL for Teddy Bridgewater was Drew Brees. When he compared him to other quarterbacks and what they do in and around the field, I was like, well, that's very interesting now that I'm thinking about it. He put it out there, so maybe it makes perfect sense that he ends up in that system, whether it's just for this season or long term. But, I mean, for the Saints, dude, that's a good move. I don't know what they gave up.
Right.
Clearly. We don't know what they gave up to get Teddy Bridgewater, but just on the surface, it sounds like a really smart move for them.
a couple of draft picks. That's all we know as of now. But for the Jets, listen, the Sam Darnold era is here and now. As you said, he was going to be the guy eventually, so this just kind of just forwards the process along. I don't think the Jets are a good team. I think Darnold will be a good quarterback. Interceptions were a real concern a season ago. I think that'll continue, particularly this year in the NFL. So we'll see what happens. That is major news. Also, in less interesting news, Zach Smith is just tweeting like a storm right now. If in case you don't know the name, the Ohio State coach who was involved with the brouhaha, of course, with his wife and domestic violence, etc., and then he was dismissed from the job. Urban Meyer is now out for 3 games. So Zach Smith apparently has chosen now to be the good time to go off on Twitter against Brett McMurphy, who is the reporter who broke the story, did a great job with us here at ESPN for years, very diligent. He's bragging about the fact he's a good dad. These are false accusations. I'll see you in court. Here's pictures of my kids. It's going crazy right now on Twitter.
It's a perfect example of what Herm Edwards used to say, don't press send.
Yeah.
And Zach Smith is not just pressing send, he's writing some just... People already have an idea of this dude.
Right.
He's making it worse for himself by what he's doing right now. Just at this point, dude, you got to leave it alone. Because what you're doing right now is just making you look silly. And also, in turn, it's making the school and Urban Meyer, the guy you're trying to defend right now, with this tweet storm, you're actually making him look worse because people are like, why did he allow you to be on the staff this long? Because you seem like an idiot. Whether you are or not, dude, you seem like one, real talk.
These issues are far too complicated and need to be discussed over more than 140 or 280 characters. They don't just start firing off tweets. I'm like, all right, now's my day of vindication.
No.
We're going to be back tomorrow.
Yes,
I know,
we are.
Shocking to some, but I think we got a blast. The Will Kane Show coming up next on ESPN Radio. We're going to have a ton of fun tomorrow, though. See you then.
That's just a sample of what you'll hear on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Weekdays at 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
There's nothing small about your business. It takes a lot of hard work, and it makes a huge difference. As a thank you, during Dell's annual sale, Dell Small Business is offering up to 40% off select PCs with Intel Core